she's gone cold. It's bloody disgusting. Oh, oh my God. Oh Jesus. Nothing worse than cold tea. Welcome to episode 8 of Entrepreneur Life with me, Joel Campbell. And I am an entrepreneur. Okay, if you listen to episode 7, then you'll kind of have a gist of what's happening in episode 8 already. If you didn't, then I've recorded them back to back. I hadn't recorded a podcast for a little while for varying reasons. You can listen to episode 7, you'll hear why. That's why I'm wearing the same clothes. That's why I'm still kind of very much following the same, current mindset that I'm in, the current place that I'm in. And episode 8 is going to be a tricky episode because I'm going to talk about a current, I'm trying to think about it. I'm going to talk about a current thing we're doing in one of our prisons with an organization and how I have allowed us to be heavily undervalued, and that has encouraged that organization to follow what I believe is their part of their mantra, which is to take. Now, the reason why I've worded it like that, and unfortunately, and I do apologize about this ahead of time, there's going to be a lot of starting and stopping through this, and a lot of pausing, a lot of consideration. If you watch this, rather than if you're watching a video of this rather than just listening to the podcast, you're going to see lots of animation as I'm trying to think my way through it. And the reason behind that is because there is a contract in place that prevents me from using certain phrasing, terminologies, words. I have to be very, very careful about what I say, how I say it, and say the references and the terms I use, because there is a non-disclosure agreement in place. And although I would say that the organization has not complied with their side of the agreement, I endeavour to not be the one to break the agreement. But I do want to discuss it because I think it's really important that these things are aired. I think uncomfortable conversations should be had, and I think people should be held to account, whether it's individuals or organisations, for when they do things that are not morally or business correct, or they're not morally acceptable, I'm going to use that phrasing. And I think people should be held accountable for that, and businesses. And I think, that might not be pointing fingers necessarily, and it's about realization. So I would like to think that businesses and individuals can look at this and go, oh, do you know what? I hadn't realized that. And absolutely, you're right, and we're wrong, and we need to change, because that's about growth. That's my ideal scenario. Not just, hey, you're in the fucking wrong, and fuck you. That doesn't help. I think it's about, people understanding other positions, other perspectives, and developing that growth. So, okay. Right, here's the situation. When we hire out our sites, when we sell our products, when we sell our services, whether they're to consumers, i.e. just people buying tickets off the website, whether it is to businesses coming to do, tours as a group, or educations, or corporates, or, investigations, like paranormal investigation hire, or whether it's production hire, whatever it might be, everything has a price point. And we don't do anything in our attractions for free. We don't. And I'm not going to apologize for that, because both myself and my teams and the teams that work within our business have worked so hard to get to where we are now. We have literally sweated and bled to get to the point where we were able to buy our own building and become custodians of history and heritage for the future. We have worked really hard for that. So I don't feel that we need to apologise for not giving things away. Now, we work with charities, we donate to charities, we certainly try and pay all of our people a fair salary. I want to pay them more, as you'll have heard from episode 7. We pay all of our bills on time. We never pay bills late. If we do, it's very, very rare. And we're really strict about that, making sure bills are paid on time, because we should pay our suppliers on time, just as people should pay us on time. We're pretty good at giving refunds if we need to in certain areas. We were really good through lockdown. So I think we're pretty morally correct as a business. We're not perfect, but we're pretty good. And we don't do anything for free, and we haven't done for a long time. And we kind of have a rule with certain things about the value is, and this isn't necessarily how it should be, but unfortunately it is currently kind of the way it's seen, especially in the corporate world, in the B2B world, I should say, is that the value is what you put on it. So if I said to you, well, to hire the prison is, I don't know, £100 a day, for example, that's how you're going to value it. And that's based on, your position to £100, not your position to the jail or to £100 to jail. It's based on how you see £100. So to most people, they're like, I can hire the jail, it's only £100 a day. Because £100, it's some money, but it's not masses of money. I think we could probably all agree that. If I said the prison was £1,000 to hire for a day, suddenly it's a bit more expensive. And it's not that the prison's not worth £1,000 a day to hire, it's that your relationship to £1,000 a day is a lot further away. If I said it was £10,000 a day, all of a sudden you can hopefully see where I'm going with this. Your position to £10,000 is very, very different. If I said the prison was free for a day to hire, well, that's fine, it's free. Everybody will be coming in. People will be hiring it. I'd hire it every single day of the year without having to spend a penny on marketing. Easy days. But I wouldn't make anything from it. And we wouldn't be able to pay our staff, and ultimately it would obviously close. The other side of that is because you think of it as the value you get it. If I gave it to you for free, now let me start here. If I let you hire it for £100 a day, you're going to go, oh, this is great. I've got it really, really good price. It's not overly expensive. I could do loads of stuff. And that's cool, and off you go. If you had it for £1,000 a day, you're going to want to pay a bit more attention to what you're doing and be a bit more organised and a bit more drilled and a bit more strategic, because you're having to pay more money for the hire. You're not going to think of it as throwaway cash in the same way. Just like if you're paying £10,000 a day, suddenly there's a significant investment to hire the prison, and therefore you're going to start thinking about really logically about what you want to achieve from it, because you want to get the value back because you're spending so much. If you're spending £100,000 a day, well, I'm retiring and buying a boat. But if you get it for free, I don't think you really give a shit, because you're not paying anything for it. Therefore, to you, the value is zero. And when something is valued at zero, do we really give a flying, I was going to really swear there, but I resisted. Do we really care? If something's free, do we really care? I'm not convinced we do. Because there's just no monetary value to it. I'm saying that's wrong, because things shouldn't just always have monetary value, but that's the problem that we've got to here, because we've worked with different organisations, and a specific organisation in question, I have allowed, and this is on me, to utilise one of our locations for no fee. Now, I can't talk about what they're doing, and I can't talk about the detail of it. What I did do was work a contra deal which allowed us some other benefits from them in replace of money. So that will be things in terms of how we could utilise potentially things like marketing. down the line, and how that would maybe help leverage sales and awareness and such along those lines. So, that's kind of the work. And we also did something where we could gain insight from some of the people involved and allow our employees to gain insight and, I wouldn't say advice or guidance, experience, life experience from an involvement in. I'm trying to word it that keeps us on the legal grounding, but also explains kind of what's happening. It's a really, really difficult point. We have utilised a contra deal, which will allow our employees, some of our employees, a demographic of our employees, I think that's okay, a demographic of our employees to hear about life experiences from well-regarded individuals that I myself very much, would have an aspiration towards. And there was varying terms that were agreed at early stages, very, very early conversational stages. There were early terms that were agreed. And those had always been made very, very clear from me to other parties that this is what we would expect, this is what we would like, and this is what we plan to do. Those are the three things. And that's gone all the way along, and it's always been a given, and it's always been fine. Yep. No problems. There's some toing and froing, but by and large it's been okay. And when it came to crunch time, when it came to contract time, we've been asking for a contract for a number of weeks, because when we get new contracts in, they aren't usual for us, or not traditional, or there's big changes in them. I like my solicitors to have a look. I like our solicitors to have a look at them and come back with, Joel, this is the implication. Joel, this is the good bits, this is the bad bits, these are the things you should look at, these things you should change. Do you understand this? Because ultimately it's in legal language, some of which I understand, some of which I don't. So I like to get legal people to understand it, just to break it down into simple English for me. So that unfortunately wasn't able to happen in this instance, because I had a contract delivered to me 2 days before deadline. So I was really up against a challenge of trying to negotiate or feel my way through a contract as best as I could without having the luxury of being able to get it checked by our legal team. I know what people would say, well, you just shouldn't have done the deal and stuff like that, but there's a lot of things riding on this, and it's not just me, it's not just my team, it's also what happens for, lots of other people that are involved in this elsewhere, and I'm always thinking about them, because I do, believe it or not, I'm always trying to think about other people, almost more than myself, I think that's right, I think that's true now. It never used to be, but I think that's true now. I do try and think of others before myself, so that's kind of what was driving me to get this done. Everything that we'd been discussing very much was not in the agreement, or was written in a different way that wasn't going to give us what we'd been saying the whole way along. So it became really difficult. I had lots and lots of battles to get the agreements changed and to get them right. And fundamentally, when it came down to it, the day before the organisation was due to arrive, we still hadn't signed a contract, and I was up at 10:30 in the evening on the phone to their legal team trying to get the contract sorted. And we got to a point where, and I know what people are going to say here, I hear it because I know this, is we got to a point where I could not get them to put into words what we needed. And we just didn't have time to do it. And I was so conscious of everybody else wrapped around this that I said to them, I am signing this in good faith that you are going to be true to your word, based on our current conversation and not necessarily what's here. Now, it's not that the contract said there are bits that it said we couldn't do things, but it was also bits that we'd agreed that weren't in there. So it didn't say we couldn't do it, it just didn't say that they had to do it. But on the conversation I was having, they were saying, but we will do it. And that's the thing, the contract didn't say they had to deliver it, but they said they would deliver it. And that's why I took them at the word. And I said to them, I am taking you at your word here, and I am going into this, my eyes fully open, that you may not deliver this, but I expect you to stand up to it. And that was where I got to. And you can hear where this is going. You know where this is going. Long and the short of it, the deliverables weren't given. And it gets a little bit worse than that, because not only were they not given, some bits were a little bit given. It's kind of like paying lip service to it. And there was some attempt to try and make it work, but it was lip service. It was a feeble attempt to make it work. And, we're dealing with professional people here. If they really wanted to, they could have made it work. They just didn't have, I'm going to say have the appetite. It just wasn't their priority. They just didn't care about our side of this. It was take, tiny little give, take. And what happened there was I called them out on it. I'm not going to stand there and let people do that to our organisation, to our people, because ultimately it was our people, our employees, that were getting the short end of the stick. There is some reputation and I guess a little bit of ego that has to take a hit from me personally, but I don't really give too much of a shit about that. What I care about is that it disrespected our employees, a demographic of our employees, and I'm really, really pissed off by that, because I think that's fundamentally unfair. It's a mistreatment of individuals. There was an agreed expectation, an agreed delivery, and it just wasn't given. And when I questioned it, when I highlighted it, when I raised it, what I got back was, not quite in these words, but this was, I would say from my perspective, there's three sides to every story. I would say that what I got back was, you should be grateful for what you got and not really whinge about what you didn't get. Now, I do understand that. And I kind of play that experiment at different points, and I had that conversation with my wife. However, in this instance, we agreed something that was a length of time, and we ended up with something that was less than, or about 30% of that time. And it was also heavily interrupted. And I'm really quite annoyed that I can't give you more detail, because I appreciate I'm walking around in. It's probably very hard to listen to this podcast. And if you're watching it, you can probably see the emotion on my face that I'm sort of going through. But basically, we didn't get what had been promised. And when I flagged it, when I raised it, when I said, hey, this is really unfair, and you've really done us quite dirty here, and you've properly negated on your what you said you would do. The response was, just be grateful for what you got. Now, the trouble is that what they're getting in return is a really high-end attraction or location that we have sweated and bled to buy. We sweat and we bleed to keep operating, and we sweat and we bleed to bring forward for the future. And they just took. And it's really, really disconcerting and really disheartening, actually, I should say. And that's where I come back to the value, because what I have actually done is, I don't think I've undervalued the location, but what I've done is I've undervalued our team. That's my 20-minute timer. And that's, I think, probably the biggest upset for me, that I haven't put our people first, and they're the ones that have missed out. We maintained a professional position the whole way through the day and the following days and stuff like that. We continued to maintain the same level of professional discipline and delivery that we would do whether you paid us, in this instance, zero, or whether you paid us £100,000 a day. We continue to deliver at that exceptionally high standard that we've become known for. And that was the feedback I got from this organisation. So we didn't negate on anything we had. It furthermore got kind of a bit annoying, because towards the end of the day, they were only supposed to be here till a certain time, which I think was about 2 in the afternoon, something like that. And it got to 6 o'clock, and they're like, it's going to be running over still. And 6 o'clock became 6:25, and I think their position was like, it's going to be another 90 minutes. And we're like, Jesus, man, it's supposed to finish at 2. It's now 25 past 6, so you're 4.5 hours over nearly, and you're still going to be another 90 minutes. And do you know what? We got to a point where we just went, no, enough's enough. And I said, you're going to run into overtime fees now. So we're going to have to start applying overtime fees, I'm afraid. And within about 7 or 8 minutes of that being said, the organisation was ready to leave for the day. And there was a whispering. I wasn't around for it, and I'm not bothered. But there was, I'm not fucking bothered, mate. Not fucking bothered, am I? There was a whispering that, we have to go because Joel wants us out. And that wasn't the case. I didn't want anyone out. What I wanted was to make it clear that there is a line. And our good nature, my good nature, had reached its end point. And I wasn't going to allow that to continue any further without appropriate remuneration, because that is ultimately how we're going to pay our employees. And part of the reason is because I had 2 employees in front of me that had been in, and they were running up towards their 12th hour in the day, and they'd done a lot of work to get to this point just to help get this organisation to where they were. And they've been plugging and working their fucking ass off for days. And like I say, on that specific day, they were coming to their 12th hour, and then they were still being told they were already a good 40 minutes over where they should have been after the end of their shift. And they were still being told it was going to be another 90 minutes. And I looked at them and I could see how deflated they were, and I could see how tired they were. And I knew they wanted to get back home to their families. And they're not here to work their asses off like that. That's my job, not their job. And I appreciate it when they break their back for me, I really do. But that's not what our employees and our people should have to do. That's what business owners do, not our employees, because it's not their responsibility to break their back. It should be their life-work balance. So I was like, no, do you know what? That's the line. Enough's enough. And off the back of that, it got thrown back at me, based on, from an organisation, based on the fact that, I'm not being fair, or, I'm taking this attitude or whatever. And I'm just like, no, do you know what? Enough's enough. You're getting something, I'm going to say for free, because ultimately there's no monetary exchange, and the servicing that we looked for, the contra deal we looked for, was not delivered as discussed and as promised. So I hit a line, and we've all got a line. We've all got so far that you can push us before we go, nah, enough's enough. Anyway, that's brought me back around to that whole point of valuation of how we look at these things. And I want people to sort of take this away on a slightly bigger picture. Don't just think of the value as stuff that you buy. Because for us, that is, in this instance, what I'm talking about. But I'm actually trying to talk about here the value of people and the value of people's time. Because I think that's a really key thing here. Because if we, and in this instance, organisation, if we let organisations and individuals and people take advantage and take of our good nature, it is eventually going to damage us. And in this instance, it would damage us as a business, because eventually we wouldn't have enough money to pay people to keep it going, and the whole thing would collapse, and people would be out of jobs, and the business would fail, and people wouldn't be able to visit, and it would go derelict, and rah, 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 rah. So, there is a real importance, I think, in terms of how we value things. And you shouldn't be afraid to go, no, this is the value that I feel is appropriate, and then have a discussion about that. Now, that's uncomfortable sometimes, and that's certainly how this organisation felt, and the individuals I discussed it with felt very uncomfortable. And they are not trained to have uncomfortable discussions. It is in my very nature and in my very blood, in my DNA, to have uncomfortable discussions, and I'm okay to do it. I wouldn't say I'm happy to do it, but I will do it, and I won't back away from it. And if it is something I really care and am passionate about, then I will definitely push it forwards. And in this instance, it was one of the most important things to me, one of the things I'm so passionate about, which is our people. So I did call it out, and I did force, and it was a forced, uncomfortable discussion with people to make them very, very aware that I thought they had let us down, let our team down, let themselves down, and ultimately they had the ability and the opportunity to not do that. And I called them out on it. And if that upset them, then I apologise. That wasn't my plan. But I do feel that people need to self-reflect then and go, actually, I could have done that different. And I feel quite happy and confident where I am in my life now. And I had a similar conversation with my daughter the other day. Because I don't tell lies, I used to lie, but I don't now. I haven't lied for a long time. I feel very happy and comfortable in the way I go about things. As you've seen in this episode, I might not be able to allude to everything in its absolute instance, but I'm not telling lies. There's certain things I can't say, so I don't say them. But I say that. I say I can't say this, rather than making something else up. So yeah, I kind of get off point towards the end. One thing I can promise you going forwards, we will never's a very closed word, so I'm not keen on it. It is highly unlikely, almost never, probably never, under my watch, to allow any individual, organisation, business, whatever it may be, to access our premises in the way that we experience at the moment for free. It is just not going to happen, because the costs that are involved with running it, and the costs of keeping it going and everything along those lines, and the fact that we don't currently pay our employees enough money, showcases we wouldn't do it. So if you're there thinking of, inquiring about utilising something, can I get it for free or something like that, the chances are it's probably not going to happen. You're probably going to have to pay for it. In one form or another, whether it's monetary or some kind of contra deal, I don't know, but there's going to be something there, and we are going to tie those contracts and those agreements to ensure that we get what we feel is fair value from that, because bottom line is, if we don't, our business and our people will suffer, and that I cannot allow in good faith and good conscience. That's it. That's episode 8. I might get sued for that episode, I might not. If I do, then hell, the follow-up episode is going to be great, because I can just talk about everything, because I'm already in court. I think I'm all good. I think I've navigated around that well enough. That is, that's it. So this has been episode 8 of Entrepreneur Life with me, Joel Campbell, and I am an entrepreneur.